Lads, we are back.
Yep. Still here.
Very hot here.
Yes, it is.
Suburban Ontario. How about you, Adam,
Suburban.
in downtown Montreal?
It is also quite warm here. Very warm, actually. It's the one thing about summer I don't like is, I like having a lot of blankets when I sleep, right? But because it's so hot, I can't get my big fuzzy blue blanket and all that. It just doesn't work.
Just have your AC and your fan on like max.
Yeah, but then it's like, hey, Hydro Bill.
Good point.
I do have a fan, but I'm not going to crank the AC down to like 19 and just have life. It's the struggles of having air conditioning. Meanwhile, talk about what's the term?
Problems.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't. I'm not cool enough. I can only just eat freezies all day.
Yeah. We are blessed.
Yeah. Indeed. Guys, hockey playoffs. Disappointment for some teams. Strikebacks from others. Success for others. Disappointing performances from goaltenders. Suspensions. I just realized we have not recorded since the start of the Montreal series, have we?
No, we haven't.
Wow, a lot has happened. Wow. We're actually going to get to talk about the Bruins because we could finally watch some of their games now. Award talk is going to be on the docket a little later. I thought we'd actually start with the draft lottery, though.
Okay.
Because it was super disappointing. The only movement from the original projection was Anaheim falling from second to third and Seattle moving up from third to second. Buffalo won again, and Kevin Adams looked like he normally, like, the GMs sort of, they hold it in, they're very professional. Kevin Adams looked like a kid in the candy store.
I mean, yeah, you just got the first overall pick.
Yeah. But
they need some enthusiasm in that franchise right now.
Yeah, they need something going well there. Probably Owen Power is going to be a Buffalo Sabre. Good. It's good, by the way. There's no chance he plays in the NHL next year, right? Like, they're going to be patient with that guy, right? Like, especially because they're going to be bad again. Even worse, probably when they trade Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart, and hopefully Rasmus are still on. And
fun fact: if he gets sent down, or he continues playing in the NCAA, he'll be the first overall pick to be sent down or not continue there, like in the NHL right at the beginning, since Eric Johnson in 2006.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He hasn't played in forever, by the way, Eric Johnson.
Oh no, he's like they're hoping he comes back for the conference finals. Him and Bowen Byram.
What's rough about that is I was looking at Seattle stuff, actually, speaking of Seattle, and Eric Johnson has a no move. So if they got to convince him to waive that, because it's the difference between possibly losing Graves or losing Devin Taves. And the way he's been playing with Cale Makar, if I'm Colorado, I'm doing everything I can to try and convince Tyler Johnson to waive that
Eric
clause. What did I just say?
Is it Tyler?
Well,
Tyler?
You want both of them.
Yeah, both
Tyler
of them.
Johnson. Yeah, they want
both of them.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins another cup in Tampa, why doesn't he?
The
just be
Johnson
like,
dilemma.
Exactly. There's decent Johnsons in the league, but who's the best?
Chris
Johnson? I agree with that. No, that's Johnston, not Johnson. His work on the STP this week was pretty good. That's a pretty must-listen podcast. But, so the NCAA guys have that loophole, right? About how they can finish their degree, finish their time in college, their degree, whatever you want to call it. And then they can be free agents.
Yeah.
I don't want to say we're getting Eric Lindros here, but...
Oh my God!
When is this gonna happen? Because if you're Owen Power, are you really in a rush to go to Buffalo?
No.
I mean, I use the example of Rasmus Dahlin, where it's like maybe settle down a bit, or even I'm gonna use another example further in development before he got injured. Aaron Ekblad, the last 2 years, he's really established himself as an elite right-hand shot. And I remember when he first came in, everyone was like, oh, he was a bust, or he wasn't first overall material, or at least top 3 material, just because these guys take longer to develop.
Defensemen are weird, man. I don't know. I want it for the chaos element, obviously. See what happens, man. Just decide your own fate. Go wherever you want to go.
Imagine he's like, yeah, I'm not going to play in Buffalo. And now in his first offseason, or was he, I guess he was there last offseason too. But so in his second offseason, Kevin Adams is going to trade Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, the first overall pick, and Rasmus Ristolainen.
And hey, Philly want to rework their blue line. Maybe they reset a bit. I'm just saying, I can see the Eric Lindros trade all over again.
Maybe, I don't know, it goes off the board. I'm seeing so many of these draft projections where they're like the top 5 is pretty set, but wherever you go, it will be like it's kind of still like a like its own dartboard in the top 5 or top 10.
It's a lot of Americans though, like because they're the only ones who played, like those NCAA guys. I mean, they're all in the same boat. They can all cheat it if they want.
It's true.
There's a chance. Anyway, I guess we can talk about the playoffs now.
Yeah.
Because what a lame draft lottery. And this was the last year you could have a bit of zest in it. Now it's going to be – so I'm guessing from now on, Buffalo are excluded from getting the first overall pick now. Is that how we're going to go? Now they're excluded for 3 years or something?
I believe so.
Wow.
The anti-tanking sentiment is kicking in. Maybe this is finally going to be the start of something for Buffalo. Sorry about us just talking about your first overall pick walking away, but I mean the discussion is always covering both bases. So
exactly.
There you go.
This was only 30 minutes.
At least, what do you mean? Oh,
I know. Lottery? It's just like usually like the lottery. I know there's just a lot of fanfare sometimes with it, where it makes it seem like it's longer, or if it's, I guess, a bigger deal sometimes. You know, maybe which is a bias, but. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like this year, just okay. It felt like we got it over with, and then now we can move on.
It's not like if there's like 4 Canadian teams and Sportsnet make a whole thing about it, and it's a complete mess. And I hate when they go to the top 3 and it's like commercial break. It's like a TV timeout with 5 minutes left in the game. What do you just get it done with? The best was Jim Nill.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
When Dallas just takes the headphones off, like, all right.
Okay.
Oh, that's a meme now. I love that.
He's great.
It's like when the Zoom class ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Literally.
Jim Nill, great guy.
Yeah.
All right. Playoffs. We like playoffs. Seattle.
Let's do it.
We're gonna start Seattle. I can't wait for some of the projections to come out because expansion is messy. It's really, really messy.
Yes.
We'll start with a big one. Well, maybe not an excitement levels of big game series, but the playoff series we cared the most about. That's Montreal and Winnipeg, the series of the underdogs. And I think ESPN had like their projections of this series. I think one person had Montreal winning, and they had them in 7. So, but they're up to. I doubt it. I don't think it was Greg Wyshynski because he just hates the Habs.
Eric Engels went against them again.
No, it wasn't Sportsnet.
Okay.
I think they've learned their lesson because that's 2 years in a row they've completely gone against Montreal and they've just slapped them in the face. I don't know. Oh, the media. If the Leafs lose in the first round this year, they have to trade one of the big guys. They lose in the first round again. One more year, and if they lose again, they have to. Ridiculous. Sportsnet. I can't stand it sometimes. Gary Galley, less is more on color commentary, by the way. I almost muted the game last night because I couldn't listen to the Islanders. It was brutal. Anyway, the Habs are up 2-0 in the series. They win. Like, you can't draw up a more perfect start to a series for a road team. You know that famous saying, you're only in trouble unless you lose in home ice. Well, the Jets lost their first 2 home games to the Habs. Lot to unpack here, and I think the first thing we got to mention, Mark Scheifele suspended 4 games for charging Jake Evans in Game 1. In my video, I addressed, I thought it was a completely dirty hit. I thought it was unnecessary. I thought it was charging, regardless if he stopped taking strides. He had all the speed behind him. Your guys' take on the hit itself, and then also what you think of the 4 games, one of which has been served by now. I'll start here with Alex.
Yeah, I thought the hit was unnecessary. I thought, in my opinion, there was the intent to injure, which I think was the main point of the Department of Player Safety video. And that's kind of where I thought the suspension was going to come from. I thought the actual suspension itself honestly, I was surprised they gave him 4 games. Just considering the Department of Player Safety, but I think that was the racist. In my opinion, that was the right amount of games.
Mm-hmm. Daniel.
I don't know. When I saw the play the first time, I just figured that, man, Mark Scheifele, like, he just let it go. Let the empty net goal, like, let it go.
Yeah.
And just keep on going, because, you know, that was only game one. And a lot of the times we talk about players, we want to see more of the emotion, more of the character kind of things. And I think sometimes, like, when things are just so closed off, so conservative, so narrow about, like, the team mentality, I feel like these emotional outbursts just come out of nowhere. And then, like, I don't know, this is just one of those moments where it's like, what are you doing? Of all players, I didn't think Mark Scheifele would do that. And I think that was a big surprising thing everyone thought about, because he doesn't have a history of this. He's not a young guy, you know, just learning the game, or he's had so many experiences with this. Like, he is someone who is probably, you know, when they have like the 1B captain on the team, I think of it's Mark Scheifele, and for him to be really reckless with that was really disappointing for me as a fan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was just you brought something up, Daniel, about him not having the history, and I just want to point out that regardless, for whatever reason, when someone not named Kadri or Ryan Reeves or Tom Wilson get into something, a lot of people's first reaction, and sometimes myself as well, is, well, the guy has no history. I'm like, but no one's talking about that here. Like, that's not the point. The point is, this is the play that happened. And we saw it happen a lot with Alex Edler. When the knee on knee with Zach Hyman. And I'm like, guys, like, I'm thinking in my head, this isn't the point. The point isn't his history. His history will determine the length of suspension, but that doesn't determine the intent of the play.
Mm-hmm. He didn't try and save the goal, and even in the player explanation video from Player Safety, they said, we acknowledge Mark Scheifele's explanation to try and prevent a goal, although the video shows that he clearly did not. Like, they completely called him out on. I've never seen that from Player Safety either. That they just very clearly were like, yeah, no, this guy's completely full of it. The fact that, you know, like, a casual fan may not understand just how much this is of Player Safety throwing the book at Mark Scheifele. 4 games in the second round for someone who is not a repeat offender. That's for the NHL. That's unheard of from what I can think of in recent memory, at least. And again, it was completely deserved. Whether he meant to concuss him, I don't think that. But he wanted to not injure, but he wanted to hurt. Yeah. He wanted to finish that hard check on Jake Evans. Now, and it's been said, like Jake Evans in that kind of play, trying his best to get the wraparound, to get the empty netter, was expecting to get hit. I don't think you expect a guy to travel nearly 200 feet and have all that momentum going into it too. And even the call on the ice was a charging major. It's ridiculous, man. And I really hope he didn't travel to Montreal with the team, or if he did, maybe if he's at the game tonight, they show him on the Jumbotron and you just let the Habs fans rip into him. Boos, obviously. Him getting personally attacked in his family is not acceptable, obviously. No. But I love how after that press conference, everyone took Mark Scheifele's side all of a sudden, including Ron McLean, who spent a majority of his opening thing being like, we love the Scheifele family. And it was like, oh yeah, Jake Evans, wish you're okay too. The guy who got concussed and stretchered off the ice on his and his father's birthday.
And yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, why is this always, I think bare minimum, like, it's not okay to attack a player, like, personally or his family or like,
never.
I think that, yeah, like, that's just the bare minimum, that the fact that we have to, every time we talk about it, it's the major changing point in terms of how we view something, is like, guys, there is the play. Here it is. Either look at it properly or, like, I don't know what else to say here. Like, this is what happened. It's not acceptable that players are being personally attacked and their families. And it's like, their history is to us should be irrelevant. Like, this is what happened. It's very clear.
Mm-hmm. First off, by the way, get well soon, Jake Evans. Dom Ducharme did say today that he's feeling better, but there's still no timetable to his return. Now, in the meantime, Trey Lekkinen is drawn back into the lineup. He's healthy now, and he's been taking that top spot. It's all of a sudden left a giant hole down the middle for the Jets. Stastny traveled with the team for Game 3 today. He did not play in Game 2. Obviously, Mark Scheifele is not playing. So that had Pierre-Luc Dubois going to the top line. What was really interesting is Kelly Hrudey and Cassie Campbell-Pascal were like, yeah, we like what we're seeing from him after the first period. And then Kevin Bieksa, which I've never seen this before on a Sportsnet broadcast, said, I just don't agree with you guys. And talked about how he didn't like him going to how he wasn't driving to the net enough, creating more offense. And, that's kind of what you expect from Pierre-Luc Dubois, looking back at his playoff performances in Columbus. It's a lot to ask for the guy, but, that's what they brought him in for. And if the series is far from over, obviously. It's a completely different one if they win tonight in Montreal. Though, if the Jets have any hope of getting back into this series, Pierre-Luc Dubois has to be the first, and it has to be the first guy to step up his game.
Yeah, I think what he was brought in to be, to either play the left side or be a center again. That's something he has to kind of prove right now. Crazy how that was such a big story for us is the center depth and how depleted it's become already for the Jets at the most crucial time. But I think with Dubois, I didn't know this was this stat that he hasn't scored in 22 games. Like, he's been a great playmaker, but his last goal was April 5th.
I did not know that.
I think that the way he's kind of classified as that power forward type of center, this type of guy that, he wanted to get out of Columbus and kind of be in a bigger market and be that guy. I think now he has to show it because he's been great as a playmaker, but they need more from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when they brought in Pierre-Luc Dubois, the idea was, in my eyes, the idea was, okay, well, is Paul Stastny enough in the long run to be a second line center? And my answer was no. So bringing in Pierre-Luc Dubois fit that hole. But what it also does is, in Columbus, Pierre-Luc Dubois was the guy. Like, he was their number one center. And I thought that, especially that playoffs against Toronto and before that, he played really well in that role. So when you're missing Mark Scheifele for 4 games, you expect that Pierre-Luc Dubois can take that next step. And he's not going to be as effective as Mark Scheifele per se, but he should be able to take that next step in that role, especially playing next to the guys that Mark Scheifele plays with.
Mm-hmm. Their center depth is just another part of their roster, by the way, that seems to be losing bodies by the period at this point. Like, Andrew Kopp took a shot that it hurt him. Dylan DeMello is going to be out for a couple of days, apparently. After Game 2, it was about a week. So that's a massive loss on already pretty thin defensive core for the Jets. Looking at Montreal, though, their defensive core has been the real story. They didn't have a point against the Leafs, I'm pretty sure, but right into Game 1, Edmondson had a pair of assists. He was at one point working the power play because Gustafsson was bad. Jeff Petrie with that wicked slap pass to Nick Suzuki in Game 1 was and Ben Chiarot, I think, is in serious consideration. That we talk about Conn Smythe, like, candidates. Like, right now, I think in Colorado, I'm actually leaning towards Philip Grubauer right now. In Montreal, everyone will talk about Carey Price, but the way Ben Chiarot is playing, like, there's like Duncan Keith when he won the Conn Smythe vibes right now. The minutes he's playing, the play on he made on Kyle Connor in the dying minutes of the first period of Game 2. I think it's taken me a while to really appreciate Ben Chiarot's game. The minute muncher stuff at one point, but he's really stepped up in the playoffs, and he's making me personally eat a lot of crow for what I said about him in the regular season. I'm very happy to do so because Ben Chiarot is he's been Montreal's most important defenseman in these playoffs. He's been incredible, like, simply said.
Yeah, I mean, he still plays with Shea Weber. Is that still a pairing?
Right. Yeah.
And when you have a not healthy Shea Weber, someone has to step up, right? And who better than the guy playing next to him?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what's happening here in my eyes.
Is this truly Ben Chiarot's revenge?
I think so. They could really use him right now. When they lost Trouba and they lost Tyler Myers, Ben Chiarot left at the same time. I think a lot of people, I think that loss went under the window, especially because he only makes $3.5 million too.
It's not that flash, but yeah, it's something that you do need in the lineup.
Oh, yeah, especially in the play. Like, you talk about, by the way, Mark Scheifele. The frustration didn't come out of nowhere in game one. The guy who was pushing him all night was Ben Chiarot. He was legit. Everything he was trying to do to Austin Matthews in round one, and, Matthews was laughing it off. Mark Scheifele responded the way he did in game one to Ben Chiarot. Not to mention, at the same time, you guys, I forget which Jets player it was. I think it was Matthew Perreault, who was like getting distracted off the faceoff because Corey Perry was chirping him from the bench. Like, what are you doing there? And that's another thing for Montreal that's been really, really good. The line of Joel Armia, Eric Stahl, and Corey Perry, the christened washing machine line, I believe is what they're called now. Like, dude, like Stahl had those pair of breakaways, and honestly, he was moving at a snail's pace. But it's amazing how much pressure these guys are putting on. Like, they are such a weird depth threat scoring line all of a sudden from Montreal. And I don't know where it came from.
No, I think that's what is making Montreal successful. In that, I think when you think of the playoffs, you expect your big guys to show up. So people say that cancels each other out in terms of the two teams, but it's your depth that will win you playoff rounds per se. In that, like, if they're on, that's where you're going to beat the other team in those situations.
You call them the scoring pain in the butt line.
Yeah, that's like, if you see those guys coming over the board, you're like, God damn it. Like, they're going to finish their checks. They go hard to the net. Like, they are legit the last line you want to play against. They're super annoying, like, in the best way, obviously. I feel like I know what it's like to be an Islanders fan now, by the way that the Habs are very much playing like them, like patiently waiting for chances and just sitting on the blue line. And like game two felt like 6 hours. It was the most boring game, like most boring playoff game I've ever watched. Like, you take the wins, obviously, and they continue to do the model of making their goaltender's life easy up until the last few minutes when Price us off 8 shots odd and was great. Shout out to his 8th career playoff shutout, by the way. That was pretty sick. Defensive masterclass is coming from Montreal all of a sudden, and I don't think I was expecting this because, again, during the regular season, their defense was getting they couldn't play in their own zone. Like, what happened? Like, is this Donald texted me the other day and he's like, I want to get your opinion on something. I said, okay. It's like, after beating the Leafs, has Marc Bergevin and Dom Ducharme secured their jobs? I'm like, okay, well, like the reports have been that Bergevin has an offer on the table and it's really up to him. And apparently he has 1 more year anyway, which was like, wait, what? Okay. If they do the thing, you're like, okay, yeah, obviously, like, people come back, right? I hate to say this, but I think Donald Ducharme's actually earned a shot because, like, obviously you don't lose Joe Bouchard. Like, please don't, like, pay him all the money. But, like, you got to realize, point I made in my video, Donald Ducharme has, and by the way, the Habs are on their first 5-game winning streak since 2017. That includes the regular season. I was amazed and at the same time so disappointed to actually see that. Anyway, though, in these 5 games, the Habs have never trailed. Just funny fact there. And this whole performance has come off of when Montreal finally got some time to maybe put a system together. Maybe this isn't Ducharme's ideal lineup, though you can't deny the fact And like at some point, he has to get credit because I don't think Montreal are getting a ton after the Leaf series. Because every time I listen to a breakdown, it's ridiculous. Like, oh my God, overtimes and all this kind of close stuff. And then game 1 against the Jets was like, oh, the Jets are rusty. Game 2, oh, Scheifele. And like, I'm sorry, but like, at what point do you give credit to the team that is winning hockey games? And at some point, if they could beat the Jets at least, how do you justify not giving Ducharme another shot? Like Bergevin at this point, I'm so fed up with the guy because he's a roller coaster. Like the highs and lows are just so weird with Berge, but at the same time, like to date, including the Leafs playoff win, it's 4 series wins since 2012, which is obviously not good enough.
Right.
But I think Ducharme's earned it. Unless Bouchard's like, I'm going to leave, then you say, okay, bye. We kind of need this guy more importantly, but I think he's earned it.
The analysis, I agree with you, is just because when Montreal's not getting that credit, I think it's just the flash of things where that was the big story in the North Division was first the Leafs, and then it was the Jets, and just the way these teams are built, the way they play. And I think now just with Montreal, it's just what you said with the whole highs and lows of things. It was always just a bit of a question mark of what this team is. Like we know they did really well in the offseason. We gave them the Kings of the Offseason award. And now that there's a system there, it's just I think maybe the coverage or the credit has to catch up to it now. That the way they're playing, they could firmly establish now. I think in the last 2 games with the Jets, or even the last few games with the Leafs, is just that's what the system is now, and it's working.
By the way, I forgot to mention this. Shout out to Nick Ehlers for protecting Jake Evans in that scrum after game 1. That was pretty classy. Former player of Dom Ducharme back in the Halifax days. By the way, there's nothing like anytime if we ever get to talk to Nick Ehlers, we have to talk to him about his Moosehead days because everyone seems to love that team and like playing for that organization. What was I gonna say? I don't even remember it. Oh yeah, yes I do. So underappreciated, undercovered, and never giving credit, but they're surprising people for consecutive years now. There's another Islanders comparison there. All of a sudden, underrated, appreciated defenseman in Jeff Petrie, like Ryan Pulak. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And the big thing is Montreal are buying into the system. Like everyone knows their role all of a sudden. Like everybody knows, like, okay, so this forward has to support the defenseman here. The battles are winning in the neutral zone. All of a sudden, Montreal, like a defenseman will never jump into the play when unnecessary. They're buying into it, guys. Like I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm liking what I'm seeing going into game 3 tonight.
You surprised me, by the way, with that comparison.
Which comparison?
Like the Islanders one? Because I thought you were going to say this looks a lot like 1993 playoffs.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say something like that.
People are mentioning 93 and I'm like, okay, like, listen, calm down. Because like 93 was a weird team, right? Because like, obviously that was the year Pittsburgh were supposed to win and the Islanders upset them, right? And then obviously at the other end, you got Wayne Gretzky. It's like, okay, yeah. But like, you got to remember, like, it still had Muller and like Don Foose that had like 100-point seasons then. Tyler Toffoli was the big guy with 28 goals. Like, shortened season, that's great. But like it would, if they did the thing again, it would be that magical. But to get there, they have to beat the Jets. Hellebuck's going to get mad eventually. You don't want that. Nick Ehlers do. You have to then go through one of Vegas or Colorado, and there's a real scenario that the Habs, like, think about it like this. The possibility is alive for a Habs Bruins Cup final. Or it's the Islanders, and could you imagine how boring that series would be? Montreal Islanders, there'd be no scoring. It'd be hilarious.
Everyone's in the neutral zone.
It would just be like 1-4 checker. It's ridiculous. Or Tampa Bay, the reigning defending Cup champions. Or Sebastian Aho, the double agent. The magic is there, but like there's a lot to do there. Like you can't celebrate a cup win and compare yourself to a magical team when you are only 6 wins into a playoff run and are only halfway through one series against a very high scoring Jets team.
What's funny is that sorry, Adam. It's pretty funny. In 2 minutes, we went from the Habs are not getting the appreciation they deserve, and we're not giving them enough credit, especially the mass media. And then we went from that to comparing them to a cup team.
You compared them to 93. And the Habs and the fan base has, but like, listen, anytime you mention 93 to a Habs fan, it's like Magic. I mean, there's two goalies.
More Magic than 86.
Okay, dude. Okay, you got to remember, we're not going into a 93. We're not doing a 93 deep dive. It's like 93. I think you can equate. Like if Ottawa had won in 2017, like that's a kind of like no one thought they were going to be like Waugh had a bad year like in 92. It was really weird, right? Okay. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll talk about the Bruins series because we have just not been giving them any attention because of timetable issues. The Islanders, we talked about how boring they are. But it just seems to be the same series, Pittsburgh series. They're down 2-1. They go to the Coliseum. The crowd get them into it. And they pull out a win to get the series tied up. Game 3, Brad Marchand, overtime winner. No one likes seeing that except Bruins fan. It's disgusting. It's such a travesty that if you do what David Krejci did to Matt Barzal, if you cowbell someone, if you used your stick to go after that area of a man, that should be an automatic suspension. Like that, though, there are lines you do not cross, Alex, and that is one of them.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw something on Twitter. I don't know if you want to get to it now. Never mind. It's fake. What was
the fake tweet? What was the
I'm
fake
not
tweet?
telling you. I'm not telling you. That's embarrassing.
Okay.
That's embarrassing.
I'm going to try
just
and find it now.
Okay, go ahead. Ask me again. What Boston and New York?
How if you slash a guy in the balls, you should be suspended, like David Krejci, instead of getting 5K like he just did.
Yeah, probably one game, I'd say.
Did you see
Not
when
cool.
he did it, and then I don't know, maybe he thought Matt Barzal was selling it, and then he went back to him.
I didn't know. I didn't see that. I saw the replay. I did not see that.
Like he did, and he's complaining with the ref, and then like he went back to Matt Barzal, who was on the ice, like just hurt, and then I don't know what they were saying, but they're yelling, and then he just went to the penalty box after.
Man, look, listen, the stick was in that area. You knew what you were doing. Yeah. Brad Marchand's your teammate, so it's in the playbook. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Varlamov's also kind of weird. Like he's been good, but then there's like the game, like the Marchand game winner was it was a bad goal to let up. And as good as he's been, like there's been excluding game 4, I'd say the first 3 games, there was always that kind of weird goal that Varlamov would let in. And you're like, man, it was the same in game 1 with those weird glove saves. He just has that one weak goal. Like they rally around it, but I'm just like, what do you like? Yeah, he's been good, but like, how long till we?
He got really yucky yesterday, though, with the David Pastrnak one-timer that hit the post.
that was terrible. How did Pastrnak not get that?
Yeah, that wasn't great.
Like,
that's wide open.
That's the worst miss I've ever seen. Because it's just like it's not like he fired it short side. He hit the far post.
Yeah.
Honestly, and Varlamov was like 6 feet out at that point. Like it was bad. It was really bad. Like Pastrnak is like he'll shake that off.
Yeah.
But like you're gonna remember that if they lose this series.
Man, yeah, that was rough to watch. No, I just think with this entire series, like one guy, and it's with the Bruins, that anytime he does one little thing wrong, they blow it up. It's Tuukka Rask, and I think he has been fantastic for the Bruins this year.
Also, it looks like he's hurt too,
which is the scary part.
Yeah, like I will never understand just the pure hatred of Tuukka Rask in that market.
I know
it's so unwarranted. Like, listen. Yeah, he didn't win you a cup, but Brad Marchand kind of lost you that in 2019. Never forget, by the way. I love watching that dang it video. But you know what's also I love about this series is if Taylor Hall didn't have a contract extension waiting, before. I think after that fight, he has one now. Like, who was it? Matt Martin? He got into a scrap.
Scott Mayfield.
Scott Mayfield. Who did Matt Martin fight? Was it Tenardi? I think it was Tenardi.
The Battle of the Towers.
I believe so.
Tenor Tower. Never forget when he was traded for John Scott when they tried to get him out of the Pacific Division because they didn't want him in the All-Star game. Because the NHL suck. And then Tenardi got done for like breaking the wellness policy like a month later. And it was like, the Coyotes could have jinxed the trade, but no, because the NHL are scummy. Anyway, anything else on Boston, New York? Boring series, but it's tight, it's physical, and no one wants the Bruins to win.
Well, yeah,
but the crowds, though, oh my God.
Yeah, that's been nice.
Just off the charts.
It still weirds me out, like especially when they go to NASA Coliseum. It's like the fact that it's a natural sound. There's actual people standing up in the crowd. Mm-hmm. It's a weird sight to me. It actually still makes me feel really anxious.
Pajot, 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 Pajot. Or they do hey Bailey, the Josh Bailey. Ooh. They are a good crowd in Nassau. They don't want that building to go, eh?
No.
There's the energy there. Like, what's that?
They're not going back to Brooklyn.
No one wants to.
Oh,
so lame. No. What's this thing about the Clippers leaving LA if they lose, by the way? Is this a legitimate thing, or is this everyone just saying
it's just those thing where it's like, if this doesn't happen, then they shouldn't be a team example, right? Because the crazy stat before we move on to more hockey for the Clippers. Yeah. They have never passed the second round ever.
Really?
Yeah, and this is a team that's in recent years has had superstar teams. Like before Kawhi and Paul George, they had Chris Paul at his prime. They had Blake Griffin before his legs wore off, but suddenly he found them again in Brooklyn. They had DeAndre Jordan. They had a great team.
Wait, super racist donor.
Didn't the last year, did they not just sign a deal to build a new arena?
That's it.
I remember hearing it in LA. Let's see if I can find it. Oh,
Where
here.
Where is there room in LA?
I don't know. The Clippers have received final approval from Inglewood City government to begin construction on their new arena next summer, which I assume might have gotten delayed. I don't know.
Shout out to LeBron, by the way, losing
and leaving.
Is that a thing? I guess
no. Leaving the
he
court.
left he left before the game was done.
Man, watching you don't do that, right? That's a sportsmanship thing. I was watching Stephen A. Smith stuff after. I'm on the bus now. I'm on the bus.
You're prepping yourself.
Yeah. Stephen A. Man, when he talked about that, going on how he left the court and that wasn't cool. I think of the Back to the Last Dance.
Oh yeah, the Pistons.
Yeah, and then who did it to LeBron? No, so who did it to Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and he didn't make the American team, and there was
the Isaiah Thomas. Shout out to Isaiah Thomas, by the way. He's a weird mention, but if you look through my Instagram, I met him.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Did he shake your hand after a loss?
Huh?
Did he shake?
Yeah, he shook my hand. He's actually a really nice guy. I got to mention. So this is a really random tidbit. Again, we will go back to hockey soon. But one of my favorite players ever was Kurt Thomas, just because he was one of those defensive role player energy guys. And because of Isaiah Thomas, he was traded from the Knicks to the Phoenix Suns. And this is when I was a huge Sun. Well, I still am a huge Suns fan, but this was the Steve Nash era. So I had to thank him. I'm thank you for making this trade. And at first he did it. He's like, what? What trade? And then he's like, oh, yeah, that trade. Yeah. It's oh, you remember that one? He's like, that was kind of a bit of a minor one on draft day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah Thomas, apparently a really nice guy. Okay.
To me, but I don't know to Michael Jordan.
Well, then again, didn't Michael Jordan have a say in how the Last Dance was done? So there's probably some, how the year he left, there was that whole thing of Scottie Pippen not sitting for a shift, and then it's well, Scotty's legacy is in question. It's what are you doing, man? Trying to bury Scottie Pippen.
Mitch Marner would never do that to Austin Matthews.
Because Mitch Marner wouldn't be in the position to see. No, we're not going to go
it's there. It's like Netflix trying to create Norris Sainz rivalry.
It's like Netflix saying something is a Netflix original series when it's very clearly not. It's just something they own the rights to.
On the Amazon the Amazon Leafs doc. It's like John Tavares. Like, yeah, I really wanted to be on the first line. You know, I know it's a real thing. Like, it's the, number one, number two, like 2 first lines. But I wanted my name up there.
God, the player interviews are gonna suck on that. Oh well,
we just didn't get it done.
The party line, by the way, we'll get to the press conferences for the Leafs in a bit, but the party line was, we were up 3-1, we had chances to score and put it away, and we didn't. Everyone said that same thing, and it was like, oh my God.
They were conditioned.
God, hockey players suck. And now it was Shanahan and Dubas too, and it's like, God. Steve Simmons, by the way, like him and Shanahan had a really good back and forth. I thought that was pretty funny. Tampa, Carolina. Scoring was needed early in the series. Tampa got that Carolina got that in game 4. The only problem is Mrazek turned into Swiss cheese, and they didn't stop taking penalties.
That was so fun, by the way.
That was, I thought, man, Tampa are done. And then I realized, no. It's Tampa Bay. How dare you count out the Cup champions? And they just ripped apart. And again, Mrazek was not great. We were talking about it before the show, Alex and I. Daniel, do you know why the hell Alex Nedeljkovic is not playing right now?
I think it's because he didn't have a good game 3. And they're just doing a back and forth kind of thing right now with it.
You sure it was game 1?
Was it game 1 or game 2?
I think he played game 1 and 2.
Because, I don't know, like, he's been solid, but it's the same thing as the Varlamov thing, where it's just, he'll be solid, and then, those really untimely goals that's like, oh, that went in?
To be fair, that goal, it was the game winner
for Braden
where
Point,
Nedeljkovic, just didn't have it covered. I guess that is fair. But, like, Mrazek,
I know.
Like,
right?
Since his Detroit days, there's always been questions about, and like when we've been concerned about Carolina's goaltending in the past, it's been rooted with Mrazek and Reimer, which I don't like. What's even going on with Reimer, by the way? Like, where is he?
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that. How was he doing?
Kind of disappeared.
James Reimer. I'm gonna quickly check where James Reimer is.
But again,
I don't think he's played in the playoffs.
Yeah, no. I always forget he's not 34 on Carolina, by the way.
No.
It's one thing I kind of felt with the game is 2 things. I think the first thing is when you get 4 goals on Tampa, you should win. You know what I mean? Like everything else has to hold up. I mean,
I don't know about that though.
No, I'm talking about like when you're able to get through that defense, get through Andrei Vasilevsky, where I have another point on him as well.
Sure. Everything
else has to hold up for you to beat them like that, right? If you can get your offense going like that. And I think the second thing too is when we saw Andrei Vasilevsky in the 3rd period, it's like, remember in X-Men Days of Future Past where the old Professor X talks to the James McAvoy younger Professor X?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like you have to hope again, you have to remember yourself. I think that's what happened to Andrei Vasilevsky in the 3rd period.
Listen, here's the thing with, is it fair to say that Carolina defense should be able to hold that lead? Yes. At the same time, Carolina have been in penalty trouble. They would say that it is officiating, but you can't put yourself in a position, like you have to have a clean game because they're like Colorado, Tampa Bay with that power play. I think the big thing with Tampa is you can never give them the chance to get back in it, and Carolina did. And again, it's like, it's Tampa Bay. Like that was the thing against Florida. Any other opponent, Florida have a real chance. But against Tampa, when there's any sort of uncertainty, you always bet on them. You never count out the Tampa Bay Lightning. It used to be Crosby. Now he's chopped liver. You never count out the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're that good. Like, say what you want about the whole cap, whatever, but like they are just so beyond they're just so next level. Like if we got to see a Colorado Tampa Bay final,
oh my goodness,
it would probably be one of like the best finals in modern history because
trade power plays.
Literally, like it'd be like any power play you're probably gonna score because they're that good, and it'd just be back and forth. And listen, I think we've talked about Carolina in the past in terms of, I think they got came up against Boston 2 years in a row and couldn't get it done. And it's like, well, let's take a step back here. Like, this is Tampa Bay. Like, Boston is good, but I think Tampa Bay is a different beast. So to beat Tampa Bay is very difficult, especially now.
The feeling I get with things is they may be able to repeat like the Penguins.
Yeah.
But like that whole thing we talked about with the West and what the matchup would be there, I arguably think that it would be a tougher final, but it's possible for them to repeat. Like, I know it's hard to see a Sharks team go to the finals now, but that was a good team, but not a great team in 2016. And then even with the Predators, like 2017, like they didn't match up the same way either. But I think if Tampa really does go for it, it will be what Alex said, like a more interesting, like one of the best finals we might see if it is a Colorado or even if it's a Vegas.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? On that note, we shouldn't be counting out Vegas because the last two games, Colorado have not been great. And listen, the big question was always with Colorado is their goaltending. And well, game 3 and 4, game 2, they did squeak out the win, Colorado. Vegas, though, on home soil, the fortress, as they call it, for some reason. It's such a bad name. They dominate Colorado, score 2 goals in 45 seconds. But Grubauer in game 2 and 3 was like the way he tracks the puck is really, like it's special. He's a really good goaltender that way. Great game from Max Pacioretty, by the way. I will acknowledge it. I just wish he had a few more games like that when he was a Hab, is all I will say. Though Philip Grubauer, I will say, has been the most underrated goaltender in these playoffs.
I agree. I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
It's just crazy to think, like, the Capitals gave him up to get rid of Brooks Orpik's cap hit.
I forgot that's what happened.
Yeah. And then didn't Orpik end up resigning with the Capitals?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Because like I think that was one of the conditions that Colorado will get a second round pick. That, fun fact, became Cody Clark, the son of Wendell Clark. 47th overall, in exchange for them to take on Orpik's contract with Grubauer.
Yeah, he has been phenomenal, and we've talked about it since day one of this podcast, like that the issue with Colorado, not that they have many issues to begin with, but the one issue they had was getting a solidified, like true, not necessarily a true number one, but someone who can be your 1A. And I think it's taken time, but I think they found one in Philip Grubauer. And this season, before the playoffs, all regular season, I think he's just been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point when a Vegas fan would cry out, "Oh, now they're going to get Ryan Reeves back," and I'm like, "Whatever, okay, get another penalty and get get Colorado another 9-minute power play." Also, yeah, their power play. We mentioned that Colorado's. Oh my, when they score on the power play, sometimes I'm just like, man, I just laugh because it's so good. Rantanen, by the way, what's he up to? 17 straight games in the playoffs of a point. Oh,
he is.
It's just you just think to yourself, it's like, man, I mean, Makar makes your jaw drop, and it's like, oh, there's McKinnon, best in the world. How you doing? And then Rantanen's just there. And then Landeskog's just doing his thing. It's like, man, you are so – reminder, no Kadri. So that's why it would be really good having Colorado, Tampa, because, like, Kadri's going to take a few bad penalties. So, like, that'll be fun, And then make up calls for Colorado, and that's how it works.
The question is, will he be there?
He will. I mean, well, they obviously have to get through Vegas, but
no. I mean, will he be there because he?
He'll be gone by the end of the first period. But yeah,
yeah.
He just has to hold it together for more than 2 series.
So, just update. CBC just announced it. Federal government has approved a travel exemption for the final 2 rounds of the playoffs that would allow NHL teams to cross the Canada-U.S. border without quarantining.
So that means that Winnipeg or Montreal get to play the 3rd round in their own buildings.
Correct.
That's good. Man, that's really going to suck, by the way, if, let's say, it's Montreal, Vegas, or Colorado, because obviously Winnipeg's in the West. But imagine 7 games going back and forth, Montreal to Colorado.
Yeah.
That's, or even like the Florida Colorado. Well, that's going to be a final, and that's always a bit messy. But still, that's going to be not fun.
No.
I swear to God, if there is a back-to-back in the semifinals, I'm gonna lose it, because there's one today and tomorrow with Montreal and Winnipeg. It's disgusting. There's no place in it. No place. Yeah, sick of it.
I don't know why they're still doing it. Doesn't really make sense to me.
It's the Canucks ruined everything. They always do.
Oh, okay. They were sick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
I don't think this is a Canucks thing, though. I think this is just poor scheduling from the NHL. Like, if you go and look, number one, they could have actually started the Canadian playoffs earlier if they wanted to, and also, they really didn't need to do a back-to-back in this. Like, Montreal's playing Game 3 tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so Colorado and Vegas are playing Game 4.
Yes.
So they're a game behind.
We'll see.
I don't get why you needed a back-to-back.
By the way, I'll tell you, as someone who is obviously a Habs fan, and also number 2 team is Colorado, there's nothing quite like these days that they're on they play the same nights. It's a great experience. Okay, Montreal, Winnipeg, Game 3. Who's winning?
I am going to go with Winnipeg.
Daniel?
I say Montreal 3-2 in overtime.
Overtime? Okay. I have a feeling the Jets are going to strike tonight. They have to win. They cannot go into the second half of a back-to-back against a grindy Montreal team down 3-0. That can't happen at Winnipeg. And Colorado, Vegas, I say I think Colorado wake up after Jared Bednar just called them out after last game. That was pretty funny. And I say Colorado go up 3-1 tonight.
I think Vegas ties it up tonight to make it 2-2. I think this series is going to be a long one.
Mm-hmm. I think Vegas wins 3-1 tonight.
Okay. We're going to talk some Leaf stuff here because locker room clean out has happened. And I have a feeling we're going to focus on probably 5 main press conferences. That was Dubas, Shanahan, Matthews, Marner, but there's a bit of sunshine with Morgan Riley's. I think first we should talk about Mitch. Because what stood apart from Mitch Marner's press conference for me was just his general demeanor. He looked mad. He was like looking up at the ceiling. And I think if there was a player who needed to have a bit of accountability, it was him. And I don't think he had that. I was not a fan of that team, but I was mad at Mitch Marner watching that.
To be honest, I don't think any of the press conferences, anyone was really being accountable, like of the guys that we mentioned, except Riley. Mm-hmm. With Mitch Marner in particular, it's like, I don't want to hear, this is what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear about social media. Like, we're done. Sorry, Mitch. Like, we're past, I don't care if you had social media on your phone or not. Like, this is the second end of the year presser that you brought this up. And I'm like, I don't care about it anymore. I guess it's just assumed for me at this part. Also, it's like I didn't feel like he was accountable for himself playing not great for 7 straight games. Actually, like more like 12 straight games to bring it back to last year's qualifying round. And I didn't feel like he was going to learn a single thing, because this is the 5th straight year now that I've heard we're going to learn from this. Like, we're past learning. When you sign, and I think I brought this up last episode, I said, we're past the point of learning. When you sign an $11 million contract, there's no learning. There's no, I want to be the guy, or I'm going to be the guy. There is, you are going to perform. You are the guy. Like, there's no, we're in this position because they're making that money. Like, that's the reality. Like, you wanted that money. Okay, perform. Like, that's what my thought process here is. Like, I just didn't get anything from them that felt like true accountability. And it felt to me like it was just a repeat of last year's press conference where it's like, well, the chance is this, the chance is that. I don't care. You cannot be unlucky 2 years in a row. I don't care if your shooting percentage was 0, 2%, or 500%. You have to perform. You have to win. Like, you don't come crying and say, I want to be in this city. And then when you don't perform, come up with excuses that don't make sense.
What's interesting, I was looking at his playoff numbers his whole career, right? And yeah, it all correlates to, there's no new playoff goal since he signed this big extension. And it doesn't require you to be Albert Einstein to figure out that it's the pressure, really. And I compared him to Johnny Gaudreau, the other podcast. At this point with Mitch Marner, I think this is going to sound terrible to say. The player is great. Like, we know that. I want to ask about the power play stuff, because apparently there was some report that he was asked about changing positions. He would work the goal line, and he shot down the question, saying that it was a complete lie. And what's weird about all of that is there was no adjustment to the power play until like Game 7. There's something not right here. There's something completely not right here.
Well, I think that's just that's a byproduct of the entire season, the power play barely working.
The lack of adjustments, even in the power play, and like the thing with Mitch, like, I'm not saying he's being a diva, but like,
if that's true, no, I'm sorry. That's, in my eyes, that is unacceptable. In like, if that story is true, it's beyond unacceptable. Mm-hmm. But I was listening to Justin Bourne talking about it. I don't remember if it was Leafs Hour or if it was Hockey Central.
It was Hockey Central.
And his thing was, do you honestly think that if that were to happen, and like, how do you think Kiefer Dubas would react to that? Because what he said, I think, like what Bourne says, like, there's no way that Kiefer Dubas just say, sure, Mitch, we'll do whatever you say. Like, they don't come across as those type of guys to me.
I want to try and find his ice time for the entire series quickly. Daniel, what do you think of the Marner conference? We kind of left you out here.
Oh, no worries. I was just kind of reassessing what you guys were talking about, and the two words that come to my mind has always been damage control. Is, of course, when it comes to like all these things with hockey, I agree that there are gonna tiptoe certain things, especially what has been trending on social media with the power play, with Marner's, I guess, quote unquote commitment or heart he gave to things. And I don't know, it was just kind of in a way, I felt that it was what he said was to avoid a lot of like those quotes that would be shown like everywhere. I think that when he was asked about all the other stuff, he didn't confirm anything, and then just that one thing where he just wants to reaffirm what is a very, I guess, natural cliche thing, is like, I'm still dedicated to this team. I'm still dedicated to the city. But again, like, I don't know. It's just hard to reassess when we talk about the whole mental aspect of things. But at the same time, what Alex said about the contract is you're paid to perform to a certain standard, and you have to really show that when the games matter the most.
And that's my biggest, the contract for me is the biggest thing. Cause I heard like Friedman and CJ are saying, and like the reason I bring those two up is because for me, they're like, I respect them the most in the media. And their argument is, well, he's 23, 24 years old. You can't lose on him now. Like, you can't let go of him now. And for me, it's like, but guys, you're missing the big, like, to me, you're missing a part of the picture in that he signed for $11 million. Braden Point didn't do this. The difference between Tampa and Toronto is that their guy who's making more than $10 million there. Nobody. They all said, we're going to take less. because I think every single one of those guys in Kucherov, in Stamkos, in Hedman, in Point, if they went to the open market, they would have got more than what they're making now. No questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's the contract. You can't have 3 guys making over $10 million. And then when one of them doesn't show up, or 2 of them doesn't show up, and then another one gets injured, where everything just crumbles.
Here's a big criticism I'm going to have of Sheldon Keefe, by the way, because I remember hearing somebody mention ice time, and I'm like, okay, how bad could it be? I don't get how you continue to ride a player who, oh my Lord, game 1, 27 minutes, game 2, 22, game 3, 24, 19 in game 4. What happened there? 24, game 5, 30 minutes in game 6. Oh, that was the overtime period. That makes sense. Game 7, 23 minutes, so almost 24 there. At some point, you have to shorten your bench. like power play, okay, then you make a bit of an exception. But well, I mean, the way it's working, maybe not. What's that about? What are you doing? Why are you? This is the thing of in the playoffs. You almost have to reward the guys who play the right style. And Jason Spezza was one of those guys. I don't know what his average ice time was, but how the hell are you riding a guy for nearly half a game when he's not doing anything for you? And ultimately, at the end, that is on Mitch Marner. I do not want to defend him one bit. The only thing I would defend Mitch Marner on is him getting personally attacked. Like that is absolutely no way, shape, or form. We've talked about that all episode. Yeah. But man, what the hell are you doing? Like that's bench management issues with me there. Yeah. I also think there's another issue with Toronto I wanted to run by you guys here. Sure. And I think it will be the number one because we know after Dubas talked, they're not trading any of the big four. We've talked a lot that Freddie Anderson's probably gone. Zach Hyman will keep an eye on, though. I feel like there's a crisis of identity in the bottom 6. Now, maybe, and what I mean by that is, it was at the start. Kyle Dubas was pure. Okay, we need to get as much skill as possible, right? Criticized for that. There was the idea that the Leafs were too easy to play against. All right, we got to get the grit and determination. Spezza is not quite that grit style, but you know what I mean. Like no one likes playing against Jason Spezza, even at this age. Simmons, I don't think you can ever count on Wayne Simmons ever being 100% healthy anymore. By the way, because of the way he's played in his career at his age. Joe Thornton was one of those guys. I think the Leafs have to have a sort of balance as well in their find the true identity of what you want in your bottom 6. And I've kind of come around to the idea that who was on Leafs Hour, the guy played for Chicago, good suit, Chris Versteeg, about trying to find that third line center. Because I think once Tavares got hurt and Foligno moved up, I don't think he would have been third line center anyway. But I think on daily faceoff, it was Pierre Engvall. You're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he came into the lineup again. Played quite a few minutes.
And if you look at every other line, and I you know me, I never shut up about having a strong third line. I think of Yanni Gourde. I think of Lars Eller on Washington. I'm going to try and get up the third line
Jordan Stahl on Pittsburgh.
Jordan, exactly. Like a depth player like Jonas Donskoy for Colorado. You're like, what is that? I think that's something the Leafs are going to look at too. But then the problem is
how
the money is going to be, because if you then maybe shell out for an expensive third line player, well, then you still have to equate the money to re-sign Hyman, even if it's a discounted rate. You also need that backup goaltender.
And you also need, Morgan Riley is up next year, and the cap isn't moving. Yeah, that's so, I saw CJ, I think he said it on SDP that there's the Leafs are going to do something bigger. But, it was all over Instagram yesterday. I don't know how Travis Konechny got put in there, but then Friedman said Dubas explored some things. during the season, but couldn't get it done because of cap. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is all great, but you're going to like, how are you going to fill a lineup? Like, and they're going to have to get bargain deals. And it's like, okay, how many of them are going to work out? Two of the four in my eyes this year worked out. Jason Spezza, Zach Bogosian worked out. In my eyes, theoretically, they should have worked out in Wayne Simmons, which it did at the beginning of the season. After that injury, it was just a crapshoot, unfortunately. And Joe Thornton, where you had him on the first line, and then you were still playing him in the playoffs, where it's like, man, this guy does not look great. Like it literally looks like there's concrete filled in his skates.
I don't know. We love Joe. We always will love Joe. But I agree. It wasn't there for me. I don't know. Like figuring out all these ways that you're gonna have all these wingers somewhere. Two things that come to my mind. I was very disappointed in the fact that Rodion Amirov's first Leafs game that he watched was that Game 7.
Was it?
Yes, he was in the building.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he moved to Toronto this summer.
Or
this spring, I guess. Yeah.
There's going to be that mix, right? It will be maybe bargain guys on free agency, though. I think you're going to see what Amirov is. You never want to guarantee he'll make the lineup, but then probably another young guy that they're going to definitely try and hope is going to be a lock. Is going to be not Jason, Nick Robertson.
I'm hoping for that a lot. Like I like his potential a lot. We've talked about countless times.
Yeah.
I just want to see him healthy. I want to see him produce. I think he can be an energy guy that could become like a pretty solid anchor in the bottom six. Like not to like dissuade the fact that probably he's still going to need some reps with the Marlies, especially the way he's had these injuries. But I have high hopes for him. High hopes that he fits in the cap, like the cap reality of things, and just becomes like that dangerous scorer you could put in the top 9.
Plus you hate to lose the player, but then if Seattle is a reality, and let's be honest, if Seattle have the chance of either getting Travis Dermott or Kerfoot, you probably say it's probably going to be Kerfoot, just because, like, no offense to Travis Dermott, but I think what makes Travis Dermott so valuable to the Leafs is he's cheap, he's under control, he's just a nice guy. We all like Travis Dermott, and there's value to Kerfoot. And again, you lose him, but you get some of the cap there. Maybe that'll give you a hand. Plus, I think any number you may think of a free agent is probably a little less, because like everything is just look at Mikael Granlund. That's a name I wonder if they go back to. Plus, frickin' Chris Johnston teasing on the SDP about this player that he thinks the Leafs are interested in and won't name him. God damn it!
It's like Ellie Friedman all over again.
Yeah. Anything else on the conferences? Matthews was a funny one, because it was just, man, he clearly went to the Lamorello Dubas School of Work in the Media.
Yeah.
That was amazing to watch.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Shanahan one, because, again, it was just a repeat of last year in my eyes. Like, his whole thing was killer instinct. Okay, guys, what's killer instinct? Because last year you said toughness, and this year you said killer instinct. And to me, they are just the same thing. The way he's describing it, they are just the same thing. It's just another word for it.
How many cups did Brandon Shanahan win?
He won 3.
3?
Yeah.
Okay, and he was on Detroit for most of that, right?
Yeah, all of them were Detroit.
All of them. Oh, yeah, no. He played a bit in New York. Okay.
Because New Jersey, because remember, New Jersey lost him in exchange for Scott Stevens.
Yeah, the offer sheet. No, because I'm just thinking, I'm like, okay, who are his teammates for those cup ones? And I'm like, okay, Detroit's. You're like, oh, okay, all right. So like Lidstrom, Yzerman. Okay, great. Okay, never mind. So like, Luke
Robitaille.
Don't you dare tell me. Remember when Shanahan was like, yeah, everyone's going to take less? I was like, shut up. You played for Detroit before the salary cap. Get out of here, you
rookie
loser.
Pavel Datsyuk won a cup with.
Yeah. God, I hate Detroit. Shanahan was Shanahan's a weird dude. I always forget that he's around. The old Champlain, old good old Brandon. It's still weird to just see because I always get that clip of him like telling David Backus to like F off, and then it's like, oh, now he's a mild mannered businessman. Um, I don't want to ask if the Leafs lose in the first round next year because like that's just too easy a narrative. But you think he regrets anything, Brandon Shanahan, about the Shanahan itself so far? You think there are any regrets about the way the Leafs have built this team right now, beside the cap? Because like whatever, they the pandemic ruined all that. We can't foresee that happening.
Clearly not.
That is true. Yeah. Well,
in my eyes, like he didn't really say anything. I didn't expect much to come out of it to begin with. That's why I'm upset, but I've talked to people who are much more upset than I am. But again, this is an organization. Like there's multiple in the NHL who run this way where nothing comes out. Like It's Toronto, Montreal, and the Islanders. I don't hear a single thing come out of either of those organizations.
I have a personal story about the Shannon plan.
Let's hear it.
So I actually was in Hong Kong when they traded Phil Kessel. This was the middle of the night there. Yeah. And funny thing, when I was in Asia, a lot of like the social media was blocked. So I had to rely on my sisters to tell me what the 2015 draft, like who was being selected. And that's the first time I'm like, what the heck was Boston doing? Because the first thing I'm like, they traded Dougie Hamilton. But at the time, when they talked about like the Shanna plan, what was going on, Dave Nonis was out when that offseason started. And the way, like, I think just I'm going to talk about my own experience with it is that when they said, there's going to be times of pain, that there's going to be a lot of growing pains here and everything, I was ready. Like, I dug my feet deep and I said, okay, I'm ready for the 5 years. I'm ready for like no playoffs for 5 years. And then when everything kind of culminated with Marner, with Matthews, with Nylander finally coming up, with Riley establishing himself as a true NHLer, and they get Frederick Anderson at the 2016 draft, I just like, oh, wow, okay. Things just kind of
wasn't it like
came
2
together.
Years?
Yeah, like 2 years, okay, because like they made the playoffs in 2017, and I think for me, like that was just the thing where I'm not saying they rushed anything, but it just those expectations where it went from like we're gonna go through a true rebuild with things to I don't know, like that playoff narrative coming up again, even though like people applauded them for getting it to 6 games against the Caps.
You brought up Nylander there, and Adam, you asked me what I think Shanahan's biggest, if he has any regrets, but I think Dubas might have one, and that is not signing Nylander earlier on. I think a lot of the narrative is, well, he should have let him sit. But Nylander was willing to take that number before training camp.
Yeah, wasn't it like they had it was around the draft apparently, like that kind of deal was formulated, and it was like
no, because he talked to him after the draft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The whole thing was Dubas was preparing for to present or whatever to Tavares, and then left it too late with Nylander. But I think Dubas's biggest regret, if I had to take a guess, was not signing Nylander earlier, because I think that changes quite a bit. It changes how the fans perceive William Nylander a little bit, at least. And it also doesn't look like he capitulated at 5 minutes before the deadline. That's my guess.
I think it happened so early on in his management that like it's not like a stain or anything, but I remember it being that narrative like that he doesn't know how to handle the cap, or he's still a novice.
He knows how to handle it. He just gave the guys the keys to the kingdom a little early. Like that's what it was. Like yeah. I don't remember who exactly was saying it. May have been Friedman, but like maybe if the Nylander stuff was handled a little better, there wouldn't have been the pressure to get Marner done as soon as it was, or maybe I don't know. But then again, like the Matthews negotiation, like that's a fair contract. Everyone knows that, like term, whatever. And then Marner thinking he's like, I'm Nikita Kucherov. No, you're not. And again, you forgive Nylander for that saga because he's performing in the playoffs.
Adam, he didn't even say he was Kucherov. He said he was Matthews.
Oh yeah. No worry. Yeah, hey there.
Is this gonna become the Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter thing, where they're like, we don't want to, we're on a different level, and then later in their careers, they're like, I regret saying this.
I honestly think so.
Watching one of the games, you know how there's the McDavid CIBC commercial.
Yeah.
And he's like, the crappy photo shoots with his parents and your brother. It's like, man, I don't care. You have enough money. I've seen your new mansion. And then there's one with Mitch Marner, and I just started laughing. I'm like, man, how much did that? I think I made a joke. I'm like, the money you got paid for that could probably help strengthen the third line. You lose. I was honestly like, man, you don't need any more money. Okay. Awards. Here's what's weird. A goalie got nominated for the Calder. Alex Nedeljkovic is there. Jason Robertson is there. And Kirill Kaprizov is there. Probably going to be Kaprizov, though you'd love to see the goalie love.
Yes.
I think I've mentioned this to you guys before. You know what I love about these selections?
What?
None of them were first-round picks.
Yeah, you did say that actually in one of our many group chats.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's great for the game. I think it's great that everyone said Alexis Lafreniere, and he's gonna be great. But I'm just saying, it's kind of amazing that these guys took the extra step. I'm not gonna use the Minnesota bias because I've talked so many times about how Kaprizov just reignited enthusiasm in that franchise. But for me, Jason Robertson, the way he kind of took up that mantle where he was already getting the games in, but he didn't really have a role with them going to the finals. And then suddenly half their team is injured and he just steps up. And I really love to see that. And then with Alex Nedeljkovic, where he's the guy that I think Chris Johnson mentioned it, that he went through a lot too. He was a 2014 draft pick and he was placed on waivers 2 years ago at the end of training camp. And the way he's kind of established himself, I know that he's not really playing right now, that I don't know, Rob Brendamore has something with him right now, but I think still a great story.
Wasn't he on waivers at the beginning of this year?
Oh, I don't know. I might have.
I definitely remember talking about the disappointment of Alex Nedeljkovic on this podcast, within the time we've talked about it, and he's proven us wrong. Ted Lindsay for the most valuable player. Voted upon by the players. The one that matters, but the media are now we have the heart, so the Ted Lindsay doesn't matter. The nominees, the finalists, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and Austin Matthews. 3 pretty good players. I think one of them will win it, obviously, and it should probably be McDavid.
I think it's one of those awards where I'm not going to get mad whoever wins.
I mean, okay.
No, it should be McDavid. No,
McDavid had 100 points, Daniel.
I'd be disappointed.
If it's Sid, it's no.
That's a PR move. That's a classic old timer.
It'd be the first time where Sidney Crosby winning an MVP would just be no. It should be Connor. Not even a question. No, don't put that. 100 points. I mean, playoffs obviously garbage, but talk about that.
Regular season awards, yeah.
Yeah, again, regular season doesn't mean anything
except for awards.
Yeah, and who cares? Listen, it's the Jim Gregory Award. Yeah, nice sentiment, but I think it's Jeff Merrick says the award for GM of the year is the Stanley Cup.
Right.
Oh, ayo.
Oh, hoy. Okay, just hit a microwave somehow. Okay, the Selke Trophy. You guys told me. So Mark Stone is one.
Yep.
Patrice Bergeron, Pat, good old Pat. Who was one again?
Barkov.
Barkov.
He was my pick at the beginning of the year.
For some reason, my mic just cut out, so that's that.
Barkov was my pick at the beginning of the year, but I like all 3 players. Crazy. This is Patrice Bergeron's 10th consecutive nomination.
I love Pat. Good old Pat. I want Pat to win it just because, I think if he wins one more, he has the most in history. Although it should be Mark Stone is just never. I think I joked before we started recording. This is the year that he gets the Doughty Norris. This will be the year where Stone finally gets it, even though he deserves it. I think that's everything, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. everyone, do your final Twitter checks. See if you see anything that's noteworthy.
Canada's losing 1-0 against Finland in the gold medal game.
Yeah. Shout out to Sergio Perez for winning. Oh my. There's this video of Toto Wolff, and I'm assuming this is when Lewis did Lewis lock up?
Yeah.
Like, what happened there?
Well, I mean, his brakes were on they were smoking up, and then he goes into the first corner and locks up.
No.
Anyway.
Not a great.
But Max crashing kind of just so basically in the grand scheme of things for the world title, nothing changed after.
yeah,
Nothing
pretty much.
changed.
Except Bottas is now in 6th.
Oh, who? Whoa! Oh, Valtteri is so gone at the end of the year. 6th. That's embarrassing.
Let me double check. I believe.
And if the Ferrari had a half decent car, they would have won today. But Charles literally could not do anything from pole.
Wow. Bottas has 47 points.
47 points. So who's ahead of him? Lando, Sergio, Lewis, Max,
and Leclerc.
Attaboy Charles. Charles from your no, of course not. Okay. Thank you, The Voice said, as always, for being a fantastic platform for the show. Check out the show's social media, especially the TikTok. We like the TikTok here. Check out Alex's blog, Daniel for the Hockey Writers, my stuff for my YouTube channel. That's really fun, isn't it? Mark Scheifele sucks. Beside that, our own social medias as well. The show's Facebook. Always check out the Facebook because no one else does. We forget it exists half the time. When it's like a notification that says, "Oh, hey, there's 2 new viewers," you're like, "Oh, cool." Facebook. YouTube for the visual experience of the show. My playoff beard is looking ever so good. I hate having facial hair, actually. This is the worst thing that's ever happened.
Look like Alexis Lafreniere with that one.
Well, Alexis Lafreniere is a tad shade ginger more than I am. I have like the brownest hair you ever see, but I will, as a wannabe French Canadian, I will take that.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.